where did you start all this? Where did this thoughts of creating this community and such a big community come from?
So it began when I was a full-time wedding photographer, and that was sort of my toe dip into the water of small business ownership. I had been photographing weddings for a number of years and kind of hit this point in my career where I was checking all the boxes of success and yet felt so unbelievably alone. I felt so incredibly isolated. I would get up in the morning, I would sit in front of a computer, I would hustle until it got dark outside, then I would shut the computer, go to sleep, repeat the process over and over and over again. And I recognized that the only other people that would really understand what I was going through, the only people that could truly empathize with the experience of being an entrepreneur and building a business and feeling that level of responsibility on their shoulders were other small business owners. But there was a huge problem. And that was that within my industry, and especially in the creative space, it felt like we couldn't possibly be community because we were always competing. There was this sense of scarcity in the marketplace, that there was never enough to go around. We were always competing for followers, competing for attention online, competing for clients, competing for email subscribers, like you name it, we were competing. And so I recognized that if I was to continue doing this for the rest of my life, if I was going to be a business owner long past this young kind of nuanced season of my 20s, I had to change the way that community worked in my neighborhood. And that's really what I set out to do. So Rising Tide and the community over competition movement as a result was just born from loneliness and a desire to solve that pain point, not for tens of thousands, but for a photographer in a small town on the Chesapeake Bay. That's what it was sort of originated to do. And so it started so simply. I just had a conversation, my husband, myself, and two of our very, very close friends in Annapolis over wine and dinner about how I was feeling. I just opened up. I think it was the wine, but ultimately it led to that conversation. And from there it was, okay, well, what if we started getting people together face to face for coffee? What if we could just sit down at a table and connect? And that's where Tuesdays Together was born. It was, let's get together on the second Tuesday of every month. Literally, we come together on Tuesday. We might compete on Monday, we might compete on Wednesday, but Tuesday, we are community, and Tuesday we come together. And ultimately, we believe we're community all the time, but it was born from that idea of like, can we get business owners to just try one day a week, one day of the month to really, really come together? And the rest is history. We started in Annapolis with one meeting. And just as a passion project, myself and my three co-founders. And then it grew. And other business owners saw these meetups and said, I want one where I live, and I want one where I live. And so volunteers raised their hands to start hosting these in their backyards and in their neighborhoods and in their local coffee shops and around their own kitchen tables. And the Rising Tide Society grew from there. Finding ways to step beyond the way things were. And again, I allude to the fact that I still think we've got so much work to do as a business community, as an industry. My hope is that we can continue disrupting and we can continue making those waves and we can continue helping new leaders to rise.
Did you receive any pushback during that time from anybody or anything? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Are you crazy? Like, who does that?
Yeah. It's funny. So in the last couple of months, I have had a couple different types of interviews with leaders that have now started podcasts and done things, and they were a part of Rising Tide day one. And what's so funny is they will all agree with what I'm about to say. Most of them, I hope, but I think all of them. When we first launched Rising Tide, there was a huge pushback. There was a huge contingent of entrepreneurs and business owners that, really doubted that we could create something where business owners come together and support one another. I remember being told this is naive. No one is possibly going to get together and share their knowledge and expertise. Why would I ever help somebody new in business if I've been doing this for 10 years? I'm not going to share my knowledge. I learned it the hard way. Why the hell should I tell them? Why should I share it with them? And
right.
A lot of that kind of animosity early on. There were articles written about why it was a terrible idea, blog posts, people.
Wow.
I mean, you have to understand, it was a big pushback, and there were a lot of anti-community over competition folks. There probably still are. And the truth of the matter is, and I do believe this, not every idea is for every person. And
no.
I'm someone, though, that I'm a little bit confrontational, avoidant at times when it comes to that stuff. If I don't agree, I'm just going to walk away. But not everyone does. A lot of people were very clear that they didn't agree with this idea of businesses supporting other businesses. And that's just not how things are done. And you should learn the hard way. And all of that kind of conversation. So yes, a lot of pushback. However, what's really fascinating is we're at a point now, we're almost in a post community over competition world in some industries where this is the norm, where this
Yeah.
idea that you can get together with other creatives or other small businesses or other attorneys and actually talk shop has become the norm. And I've had leaders say to me, people sometimes don't realize how revolutionary this idea was back when it came out. They think it's normal now. And it's like, of course, that's how it is. Of course, we do that for one another. Of course, it's, accepted to be kind to other business owners. It wasn't. There was a time where it was acceptable to write negative reviews, dishonestly about your competition that was the way it was. I witnessed that happen. People get torn down and Facebook. It was so nasty and so negative. And so I think that, yes, there was a lot of pushback. There's probably still folks that don't agree with the idea today. However, it's been really interesting to see the positive impact that has resulted. The ROI, like even if you don't love the fluffy, if you look at the business ROI, community is a competitive advantage. Right. Community is actually an asset to your business. The statistics are against you when you enter a business, right? A lot of businesses fail, especially within the first 3 years, the first 5 years. There are those milestones we all know. And those metrics are against you. But I've always said this, it's very hard to drown when there are 10 people in a lifeboat reaching out their arms to lift you up out of the waves and pull you back to safety.
I love that.
Very hard to drown. And so
I love that.
Yes, for these small businesses, that the proof lies in that ROI and that benefit, not just the fluffy that I love and the emotional and the empathetic, but ultimately in the down to brass tacks, bottom line, P&L statement. Is your business still around 5 years later? And I'm telling you, the people that have invested in relationships, have invested in community, have dug deep roots into the heart of their local areas are the ones that are still standing after the storm.
That is mind-blowing. That was so nice. I loved it. Golden nugget that just came out, along with all of the other golden nuggets that have come out from you. But that is so, so, so true. Is there anything in between the lines that normally we don't hear about that you want to share with us that would show people how you maybe faced a challenge or, something that helped you to pivot and this is how you did it? So just to kind of get some insight that's in between the lines.
Oh, I like that question. I think that one of the biggest kind of misconceptions that we talked about perfection and integrity in terms of leadership, but I also think it applies to what we put out there and what we create. And I think creating imperfectly is still better than not creating. Mm-hmm. So I think that a lot of people get stuck in this place of, I can't put it out until it's perfect. I can't go out there with my product, my launch, my course, my podcast until every I is dotted, every T is crossed. But sometimes urgency is required. And sometimes we're not going to get a chance tomorrow. Sometimes we've got to shoot our shot when we have it, and we've got to take advantage of what we've got. Or in the case of serving the community, the business owners might not be there if we don't give them what they need today. And so I think, something that really shifted in me over the last 4 to 5, 6 months now is this understanding that you have to be constantly listening to the pain points that people have. So your customers, your clients, those pain points are going to change. And it just reminded me, I think, ultimately of the ability for all of us to make those quick decisions when needed. And when they're in alignment with the pain, when they're in alignment with what someone needs and the service we're there to provide, or, the product we've created to solve a problem or a pain or whatever it is. And we're in tight alignment with the customer, or in this case, the community, right. We have the ability to navigate so much more quickly and efficiently and like a lean machine, and just get things into the hands of those who need it as quickly as possible. Again, it's like, that's in between the lines. That's what no one gets to hear about or see, but that's kind of like where the sausage is made. And I'm really proud with where the sausage is made and the team that we have.
That's incredible. That is so incredible. Yes. Thank you so much. So I know that you are super connected to the community. So what are some legal issues that you have seen or that are very common in our creative industry and in the creative community?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. I mean, how much time do we have? I think at a high level though, I know some of the biggest concerns that I see popping up frequently are around intellectual property, or around copyright when it comes to photography or design, trademarking when it comes to phrasing or business names, especially in spaces where a lot of folks go into business around their personal brand and then find out, oh, someone already trademarked my name. What do I do? Right. So these sorts of, name within a business, these sorts of questions that pop up around sort of like intellectual property, also though business formation, around What type of business should I be? What type of entity makes the most sense for me from a legal perspective? I even, for us with Rising Tide, when we created Rising Tide Society, I mentioned it was a coffee meetup. How do you business, entity a coffee meetup? I don't know.
Yeah.
And looking back, we just created an LLC at that point in time because that's what we had built before. And again, like we operate like our members do now. We probably should have talked to somebody, but that's really what I think I hear a lot of, the intellectual property and then the business entity formation.
Yeah, that's something I hear a lot also. I mean, I was just on a call before this, and it was like a group meetup call that I was in, more like a mastermind group. And this, all these brilliant ideas are coming out. And for me, while I am also in this group creating and launching as an entrepreneur, not as like a lawyer, I'm sitting there and every time somebody's talking, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm thinking about the 5 different things that they need to be careful about, or legally they need to protect themselves. And I'm just trying not to like interject in every single conversation, being like, but did you think of this? Did you think of this? But you're right. Like I think a lot of times entrepreneurs just kind of jump in and we're not thinking about all the other aspects. Like I'm a lawyer, so I think about the law, but I don't think about the finances. I don't think about, just how am I going to create this web design? Like who's going to do this? So these are all the things that come after the fact.
Right.
So yeah, the copyright intellectual property is huge. And for me, the one thing is protect it. If you don't protect it, someone will take it.
Yep.
So we need to protect that as well. So what is your favorite book?
Okay, I get this question a lot and I change it every single time that I'm asked. But for the sake of this conversation, I would say if you liked this conversation, I'd really recommend Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek.
Oh, I like that.
It's good.
I like
it's a good
that.
book.
And then what are your favorite biz tools?
Oh, well, obviously HoneyBook. I also love Flowdesk. I am a huge fan of Flowdesk.
Yeah.
Actually, the CEO of Flowdesk worked with me at HoneyBook for 4 years before going and launching Flowdesk.
Wow.
So we are big supporters of Martha, and Rebecca, who is her co-founder, is head of product, is one of my best friends in the entire world. So I love Flowdesk, awesome. But again, biased because they're my buddies and the godmother of my son. So literally, I'm very biased. HoneyBook and Flowdesk. Additionally to that, I think I would say maybe 2 other platforms. So I really love Teachable for online courses. I think they do a really great job. And then Planoly, which I adore Planoly, and their co-founder Brandy is an extraordinary human being. And I've just been really honored to get to know her over the years.
Yeah.
So that'd be my 4 top roundup.
I love Planoly. I mean, I couldn't survive without Planoly. Let me put it that way instead.
Yeah, me neither. I couldn't either.
Well, I have had such an amazing conversation with you. You have just thrown all over the place all these golden nuggets of genius and inspiration. And I'm just so thankful to you. And I'm sure everybody else enjoyed listening to you and your story and your entrepreneurial journey. And so thank you. I'm so grateful for you. How can we find you? Where can we find you?
Yes. So I would say at Natalie Franke on Instagram is a great place to go. Or even if you have questions about anything we talked today, from the business side of things to the meetups, to where to find one in your city, how to get plugged in and connected, where to find these resources we've talked about, I'm an open book and I'm always available to you. Just throw a DM in there and I'll get back to you quickly on Instagram.
It's been so awesome talking to you. You truly are. It's easy to talk to you too. I remember the first time I met you and I was nervous. I was totally fangirling at the time also, and nervous, and all these other feels. And you just made it so easy. And I love that. I love the humility that you bring to the table.
Well, thank you. So, this was such an incredible time together, an interview. And I'm so honored and so grateful that you asked for me to come on, and thank you. And I cannot wait for this episode to go live, and we'll just be cheering you on.
Thank you so much.